I had been driving home for nearly an hour, trapped in the usual Friday traffic. The highway was slow but steady, everyone doing their best to get through the evening rush without losing their minds. People were tired, but at least they were respectful. Drivers gave each other space, merged politely, and moved like one big, weary caravan. And then he appeared. A black pickup truck came roaring down the shoulder, kicking up dust and gravel as if the rules of traffic didn't apply to him. He cut into the lane so abruptly that the car in front of me nearly spun out trying to avoid him. Horns blared, tires screeched, and for a moment I thought we were all about to crash. But the truck didn't slow down. He didn't apologize. He didn't even acknowledge the chaos he had just caused. He just kept going, swerving from lane to lane, forcing people to slam on their brakes, bullying his way forward like he owned the road. My knuckles turned white around the steering wheel. It wasn't just me, I could see other drivers around me shaking their heads, cursing under their breath. This guy wasn't careless, he was deliberate. He enjoyed it. He thrived on making others miserable. Every reckless swerve, every aggressive honk, every smug gesture out of his window, it was all meant to say, "You don't matter. I'm in charge here." But what he didn't realize was that he had crossed the wrong group of people. Because traffic that day wasn't just tired commuters. It was a collection of people who had had enough. Enough of reckless jerks, enough of selfish drivers, enough of being pushed around. And slowly, almost like it was planned, I saw something incredible begin to happen. It started with the sedan in the left lane. The driver, a middle-aged man with glasses, refused to let the truck merge ahead of him. He held steady, matching the truck's speed, forcing him to stay boxed in. Then a minivan pulled closer on the right, closing the gap so the truck couldn't swerve over. The pickup revved loudly, tailgating, honking, trying to intimidate his way through. But the cars around him didn't budge. They tightened their formation, closing in like walls on either side. I couldn't help but smirk. For the first time that evening, the road bully looked like prey. Still he tried. He darted left, then right, but every attempt was blocked. Drivers were communicating without words, a nod here, a brake tap there, working together to trap him. And it worked. The once dominant truck was now caged in, surrounded by ordinary people who had silently decided, enough. I followed a few cars behind, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of amazement and satisfaction. My heart raced. The man who thought he could humiliate everyone was suddenly the one being humiliated, stuck, powerless, his engine roaring but going nowhere. Traffic moved like a tide, swallowing him up, pushing him further back until finally, he was in the corner. A wall of cars ahead slowed down, another car boxed him in on the side, and the vehicles behind him refused to give him room. He was trapped. I could see him now through my windshield, slamming his steering wheel in frustration, yelling curses that no one could hear. His arrogance was gone, replaced by something else, panic. And in that moment I realized, this wasn't just traffic. This was justice. The road had turned against him. The pickup roared, its engine screaming like a caged animal, but it was useless. No matter how much he pressed the gas, the cars around him didn't flinch. The sedan on his left stayed firm, the minivan on the right mirrored his every move, and the car behind him shadowed him so closely that he couldn't even think about backing up. For the first time since he'd stormed onto the highway, the road belonged to everyone but him. He tried intimidation next. He leaned out of his window, shouting, waving his fist, laying on the horn in long, angry blasts that echoed across the lanes. But the other drivers ignored him. They weren't interested in his tantrum. They were focused on holding the line. The lead car, a silver SUV, slowed down deliberately, forcing the entire cluster to decelerate. Suddenly the bully who had been speeding and swerving just minutes ago, was crawling at 20 miles per hour, boxed in like a child on timeout. I laughed out loud. The poetic justice was too perfect. Every mile they crept forward, his rage grew. He slammed his hands on the steering wheel, pounded the dashboard, even tried to nudge the sedan beside him. But the driver swerved just enough to avoid contact, then slid right back, locking him in again. It wasn't just revenge. It was choreography. I could feel the energy among the drivers. None of them knew each other, but in that moment they were united, bound by a silent agreement that this man had to learn his lesson. And then came the final act. The SUV in front gradually steered toward the shoulder. The rest followed, closing tighter and tighter around the truck until he had no choice. He tried to resist, but the formation was unbreakable. He was herded like cattle, shoved toward the side of the road, cut off from the flow of traffic. Finally, with a screech of brakes and a frustrated yell I could almost hear through my windshield, the pickup jerked to a stop on the gravel. The cars surrounding him didn't leave immediately. They lingered, boxing him in completely as if to savor the moment. Drivers leaned out of their windows, glaring, some shaking their heads, some laughing. A few even clapped. I slowed as I passed, catching a perfect glimpse of him. Red-faced, sweating, his arrogance shattered, trapped by the very people he thought he could dominate. He looked small now. Powerless. And then, just as smoothly as it had begun, the formation broke apart. The SUV pulled back onto the road, followed by the minivan, the sedan, the rest of them. One by one they left him behind, humiliated, stranded, with nothing but his own anger to keep him company. I merged back into the main flow of traffic, my heart pounding with exhilaration. For miles after, I couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just that he got what he deserved. It was how it happened. No shouting match, no fist fight, no police. Just ordinary people, tired of being bullied, rising up in unison and showing him that he wasn't untouchable. Later that week, I drove the same route again. And there he was, the same black pickup. But this time he wasn't speeding. He wasn't cutting anyone off. He was crawling behind a line of cars like a timid puppy, keeping his distance, obeying every rule. When our eyes met in the rearview mirror, he looked away instantly. That was when I knew. The road had broken him. And he would never, ever forget it.